Alright, welcome back to It's Not a Sport, episode 27, the season finale of season 2. That's right, we made it to the last episode of season 2 before we start up next year in 2020. So, to commemorate this final episode, we're just going to be going over straight games. We went over all of esports stuff in our last episode, summing up this year of 2019. And for 2019, we're just going to go over games. So, starting off with that, we have some interesting gaming news. Game of the year, Sony had a state of play, and then all the other organizations are coming out with their games of the decade, since the decade's ending. And I also came up with my own list and recommendations, just like we had on in season 1's previous show. So let's hop right in to Sony's state of play. Sony's state of plays are generally small. There's not a huge lot of announcements, but there's generally one big one. And that one for this one was being Resident Evil 3 Remake for the PS4 coming on April 3rd, 2020. So relatively soon. We all saw this coming. It's generally easy, I think, to make Resident Evil 3 Remake after RE2 Remake being so successful this year, and that they already had the assets of the zombies and everything in play, and all they have to do is just kind of make new assets for Nemesis or the playable characters and the map, and then just look back at how Resident Evil 3 the original played and then make the 2. Everything's already built for them, so it's not that surprising that we'll be getting it so soon. With that being said, I am really excited to see Resident Evil 3 Remake, just because 2 was so well done. I'm disappointed that 2 didn't win anything at the Game Awards, maybe because it was a remake, but it still was a really well done game. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'm really happy to see that Resident Evil 3 Remake is coming next year. The next announcement that they had, we've known about it for a while. Square Enix has been teasing it, but we actually finally got a release date for it. Is the Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC expansion. It is coming with new characters and battles on January 23rd, 2020. So right around the corner at the end of next month. Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC was teased at E3 back in June. So it's good to see a release date for this. Kingdom Hearts 3 was a game that it fell flat for me overall. Again, we'll probably get into more of that later in the episode, but it's good to have DLC coming. And then we have tinier updates. Untitled Goose Game is coming to the PS4 on December 17th. That's actually tomorrow. Dreams will be available for the PS4 on February 14th. Spellbreaker is a new battle royale game combining role-playing and magical combat. It's starting a closed beta, and also featuring Paper Beast and some other VR games. And that basically sums up Sony's state of play. The last thing I want to note before we move on, both the Resident Evil 3 Remake and the Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC both got trailers. So if you want to know a little bit more about them, you can go see the trailers. I know there's actually dev logs and gameplay of the Resident Evil 3 Remake, where the devs kind of explain things that they're doing with the remake compared to the original. So that's also available for your entertainment. Moving on, we're going to get more into the Game Awards announcements later, meaning their nominations and what was awarded, but they did have some notable announcements at the Game Awards. Some were really high and hyped, and some were really low, and no one cares. Most notably being the Xbox Series X, or as people have been calling it on the internet, the Sexbox. It's coming out next holiday. I think it's launching it's coming out next holiday. I'm not 100% sure if this is going to be the new Xbox. I think that's what it is. It's not, because it was previously known as Project Scarlet, which is what they announced the new Xbox to be. So I think this is gonna be the new Xbox. It looks and built kind of like a PC. It's a lot stronger technology-wise. It's got a lot of more RAM and the better processing all built into it. But Xbox keeps doing that with each iteration, to be expected. I believe the Xbox One X, which is the current Xbox, the newest, is like the strongest console out of all the consoles. So Xbox has always been on the top of their game in terms of hardware, but they fall flat of games. With the Xbox Series X, they also announced Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, which won a lot of awards, I believe, in 2017. This is a prequel to that game. I personally know nothing about this game, but I know it was very well reviewed, so I will be looking into it. It's on my list. So if you're excited for that, that's going to come out with the Xbox Series X. Also, Bravery Default 2 was announced for the Nintendo Switch. Again, personally, I know nothing about this game, but apparently people were very excited for it. And the announcement and people being excited for the announcement made the devs very happy. There was a post about that saying that they, are more enthusiastic to work on the game, which is I'm always happy to see, because the devs don't get enough credit with how this world is kind of developed in the gaming industry. People often, I think, forget about them and the work that they put into the game because of how management is managed and how we get bad, monetization overall. So people just blame the devs. Other than that, Gearbox is working on a game called Godfall. It's supposed to be like a Melee Borderlands sort of thing. That's cool. Prologue was a game that was announced. The Ruined King, League of Legends story. League of Legends had 2 announcements. They had this, a Ruined King, and they had another one later on. Ghost of Tsushima it's a PS4 samurai game. There's finally some news and some trailers about that after Sony's been really quiet about it. It looks good. I think most Sony games are really fucking good, but we have a 4-minute trailer, and I believe there was a release date as well. Final Fantasy VII Remake got a trailer. This is one of my most anticipated games of 2020, and I am super, super excited for it. If you haven't already, I recommend just go on. You can get it on your phone, I believe. You can get it on the Switch. You can get it on the PS4, and you can get it on PC. Go play the original Final Fantasy VII. It may be difficult to get through because it's classic. It's fine. Look up a guide and it'll be guided for you. But it is a fantastic game. One of my favorite games of ever. It's up there, and it's definitely worth a play. Even now, it being really old. And I recommend you go play it before the remake. Cyberpunk had some behind the music scenes, just like artists saying how they're going to be part of Cyberpunk. Gears Tactic had a trailer. The Wolf Among Us 2, a Telltale series, was announced. Now, keep note that this is not the same Telltales that made the original Wolf Among Us. The original Telltales actually went down under, meaning they closed, and another company bought up the brand and bought up all their assets, and they decided to make the Wolf Among Us 2. It's not the original cast or team that developed the original Wolf Among Us, so it's different. So we'll see how it goes. I think the original Wolf Among Us is also free on Steam currently right now, at the time of recording. Last but not least was a Fast and Furious game coming out in May 2020. I'll leave that to you. If you want to play as Van Diesel, go ahead. But that's pretty much it. So, now, let's get into what we've been waiting for. There's a lot of fun things to talk about. And we're going to talk about Kotaku's the decades in 5 games. So these are the 5 defining games of the decade according to Kotaku. And some of them I've actually preached of. So the first one being Minecraft. Goes without a saying, yeah. Minecraft is it's a game that I think changed a lot of how games were made prior to Minecraft. Minecraft took the idea, at least for me, when I was growing up, personally. When I was growing up, I played with Legos. And I loved building shit with Legos. And then in 2009, Minecraft came out. And you can play virtually, infinitely. You can build whatever you want. You could do X, Y, and Z. And Minecraft really evolved the game as a child, and is still one of the most viewed games on YouTube. So Minecraft being one of the most defining games of the decade is, without a doubt, yes, it's a fantastic game. I believe everyone has played it, and if you haven't, I believe you should play it. It's a game where it really builds up your imagination, and you can, anything that's possible is possible within Minecraft, essentially. Whether you want to build your entire city or town, or just play with friends, or just, kind of go through a relaxing but yet scary experience at the same time. Minecraft has aged really well over the decades, even with not selling it and Microsoft obtaining it. I think that if you haven't already, go play Minecraft. It's a game that really speaks for itself. The second one being Mass Effect 3. I find this to be really interesting that they chose Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3 was a good game up until the ending, which had a lot of problems. But the game itself, in terms of Mass Effect franchise, 2 is generally regarded as the better Mass Effect, which is why if I was going to recommend a Mass Effect, I would recommend 2. But it's very interesting that number 2, they have Mass Effect 3 as one of the top defining games. On number 3, the Tales from the Borderlands. Now, I actually did not play Tales from the Borderlands, but I heard it was very good. It sets up a lot of lore for Borderlands 3, which is surprising that they kept it canon. But I think the Telltale games in general, especially The Walking Dead, are really interesting. I think that, of course, how they went under was bad management, but the games itself were success as terms of story, kind of decision-making games. But number 4, we have Broken Age. I don't know a lot about Broken Age at all, but that is number 4. And then for number 5, number 5 is Depression Quest. Depression Quest, I've heard about. It's more of an indie sort of, interesting game. I think it's won a lot of rewards. I haven't played personally, but that's number 5. And then they actually changed it, or did they? Or no, yeah, Coda, or I guess another pick that they had on their list is Nier Automata. You've heard me preach about Nier Automata before. It's a deep game. It dives into a lot of questions. It won soundtrack of the year. It has a fantastic soundtrack. Has fantastic camera angles, fantastic, but it's a really good game. It's kind of a cult game, but it is a unique game and definitely on my list of games that you must play. If you haven't played Nier Automata before, I highly recommend you play it, because it is out of all the games that I played this decade personally, I think it is one that is very unique. Other ones being maybe Persona, Final Fantasy VII, which wasn't of this decade, but I still played it from the 2010s to now. But Nier Automata is a very special game, and I highly recommend that you play it, because it is a game that questions a lot of things that has to do with humanity, and overall it's just fun. Alright, now I'm going to go over quickly of Metacritic's top video games of the decade, so from 2010 to 2019. I'm not going to comment on them because there are a lot. So these are the top kind of reviewed games of the decade. And of course, most of these I have talked about in the past. So here we go. Super Mario Galaxy is number 1. followed by The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Red Dead Redemption 2, Grand Theft Auto 4, Super Mario Odyssey, Mass Effect 2, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, The Last of Us Remastered, Red Dead Redemption, Portal 2, God of War, Batman Arkham City, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D for the 3DS, Bioshock Infinite, Pac-Man Championship Edition DX, Divinity Original Sin 2, Super Mario 3D World, StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty, Minecraft, Persona 4 Gold, Persona 5, Mass Effect 3, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, Rock Band 3, Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Inside, Forza Horizon 4, God of War 3, Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, Bloodborne, Celeste, Super Street Fighter 4, The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, Undertale, Fire Emblem Awakening, Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, Journey, Xenoblade Chronicles, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the Ico and Shadow of the Colossus Collection, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Blood and Wine, Little Big Planet 2, Overwatch, Bayonetta 2, Forza Horizon 3, and Final Fantasy 14 Shadowbringers. Those are the top reviewed games. The most popular games are The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, The Last of Us, Mass Effect 2, Minecraft, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Dark Souls, God of War, Portal 2, Grand Theft Auto 4, Bloodborne, Red Dead Redemption 2, Red Dead Redemption, Doom, and Fortnite. All these games, I believe, are must-plays, without a doubt. A majority of these games I have played, and I can 100% agree with a lot of this list. I have my problems with some of them, yes, but they are great games, and I do think they define this decade for a reason. Now, we're going to go into this year and the 2019 Game Awards nominees. So, we're going to actually start off from the bottom, right? Because that's how you do it in a Game Award. So, for the VR/AR game, Beat Saber won. Beat Saber, it's really fun. I actually got to play it at a friend's house. It's a lot of fun. Imagine OS, but VR. Following that, the best strategy game was Fire Emblem Three Houses. I have not played this yet, but this is on my list of playing because it's gotten good reviews. Sports/racing games was Crash Team Fusing Nitro Fuel. It was a Crash Bandicoot racing game. Yes, I did know that got good reviews as well. For best score in music, Death Stranding won. I actually do agree with this. Death Stranding's score is actually pretty decent. It kind of reminds me of somewhat Tronish, as well as I know that I haven't played the game, but I know in the game there's like certain travel songs by like Low Roar, I believe the band name is called. They were in their song was in the first announcement trailer for Death Stranding. I think it's called I'll Keep Coming. But BB's theme, for example, it's on Spotify. It's a fantastic song, and I think they really did a really good job with this. But they did a good job with the Metal Gear soundtrack as well. So it's to be expected. The top role-playing game was Disco Elysium. This is the first I've heard of it, but now it's on my radar. The top performance was Mad Mikkelsen as Cliff from Death Stranding. Best ongoing game, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this one because this one I have the biggest problem with. The one that won it is Fortnite. I don't think anybody was happy about this, that Fortnite won it, but I feel like, they gotta give Fortnite something for some fucking reason. Fortnite didn't deserve this category because I believe Final Fantasy 14 does. The development of Final Fantasy 14 is amazing, and they did a fantastic job with Shadowbringers. Every patch just adds so much quality of life and so many positive features, as well as fantastic content to the game, that it just keeps getting better and better. And that's why, it's on the list for a reason, why Fortnite's not. And it's like highly recommended. But again, these are voted by what's most popular, and it's obvious that Fortnite has a bigger audience than Final Fantasy 14 does. That goes without us saying. But in terms of actual ongoing best games, that the games just keep getting better and better, Final Fantasy blows everything out of the ballpark by like a nuclear blast. It's fantastic. But Fortnite won, and I think there's a funny clip of when they went up to get the award. They played a clapping sound effect, but nobody was clapping. Thought that was funny. The best narrative game was Disco Elysium. The best multiplayer game was Apex Legends. I actually do agree with this. Apex has, since it launched in February, it has gotten a lot better. I think there's currently actually a holiday event going on right now in Apex Legends, but it is I think a fantastic game, and overall I do think it's better than Fortnite, but the building mechanic of Fortnite just makes it more compelling, because as Minecraft taught us, people like building. Best mobile game was Call of Duty Mobile. Okay. The best independent game was Disco Elysium, again. The best games for impact was Grix. The best game direction was Death Stranding. The best fresh indie game was ZA and UM for Disco Elysium. The best fighting game, without second doubt, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Best family game, which is funny, this is all Nintendo titles, was Luigi's Mansion 3. The best esports team was G2 Esports. They had a great run this year in League. Sadly, they didn't come through, but again, we covered that last episode. The best esports player was Bahuga of Fortnite. He's the one who won the Fortnite World Championship, and being at the age of 16. So yeah, I think, give him one. Why not? The best esports host is I think her name is Sojaz. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's she helps host European League of Legends. The best esports game of the year is League of Legends. Yeah. And the esports event also is Worlds 2019. The best esports coach is Zonix for CSGO. The best content creator of the year is not a Fortnite content creator of the year. Thank God, is Shroud. The best community support is Destiny 2. Again, I think this could have gone to any of them, but Bungie kind of preaches that everything they do is for their community. That's kind of their sell model right now. So without a doubt, that's why I think this was given to it. Audio design, I have a problem with. Audio design was Modern Warfare. I think Resident Evil deserved this. Resident Evil audio design is basically what makes the game. Why is the game scary? It's not because of the zombies. It's not because of the environment. It's because of the the audio design. Hearing Mr. X's footsteps throughout the police station, the zombies' groans, the wind going through the window, or doors opening, the gunshots, everything about Resident Evil's audio design is what really made the game scary for me. I was scared not because, there's a zombie there, that's not scary, but because what I was hearing through my headphones truly terrified me. So I think that Resident Evil definitely deserves that in this category, but Modern Warfare won. Best art direction is Control. I'm currently playing Control. Control's it's a very interesting game. Very Matrixy. Very it breaks the fourth wall kind of a lot. but it's not trying to break the fourth wall, but it is. I don't know. It's more Metal Gear, how he's like, hey, I should climb this ladder, or something like that to the player. It's a very interesting game. Again, in a world where this year where we had Sekiro and Resident Evil come out, which were really fantastic games, Control kind of fell flat, but it was the better of maybe a majority of the games that came out. But it's happy to win Best Art Direction because it really does have a good art direction. The Best Action Adventure game was Sekiro. Sekiro's a lot of fun. The Best Action game was Devil May Cry 5. Devil May Cry 5 was a good action game. It had... it was good, and I'm happy to see Capcom won something. If it wasn't for Resident Evil, they would at least won it for DMC5, because DMC5's combat and just how they did it in the soundtrack was good. And Game of the Year, drum roll please. The nominees for Game of the Year were Control, Death Stranding, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, Resident Evil 2, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and The Outer Worlds. And like I called it, the winner for this year's Game of the Year was Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. So, why was it Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice? Well, this game was, in my point of view, out of all the games that came out this year, that being Control, Death Stranding, Resident Evil, the overall design of this game was fantastic. And it really comes down to three aspects of the game: the movement of the game, the combat of the game, and the enemy design of the game. The combat and all three of those aspects combined together create a fantastic game. I actually 100% completed this game. I did all the achievements, all the bosses, got all the upgrades. It was just a really fun experience. And the best part about it is that it was difficult. In every fight taught me that, okay, maybe not do that, or look for this animation. It improved me. It didn't make me mad like Dark Souls fights do. It taught me the fight with every encounter. It was a lot of fun. The combat was, I think it mastered that sort of counter combat, and then we saw it in Star Wars later this year. It was, they really, really just outdid themselves with Sekiro. The world and mixing traditional Japanese history with traditional like Japanese fantasy and folklore, combining the two, felt really just brought the game more to life. The bosses, being the dragon boss, was visually beautiful, while the final boss was just both visually beautiful and extremely difficult. All aspects of this game, I think, were completely were really well designed, just like how God of War was with last year's Game of the Year. So if you haven't played Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice yet, I highly, highly recommend you do. It won Game of the Year for a reason. It won it for me for a reason. It is truly a fantastic, fun experience. Take your time with it, okay? It is a difficult game. It's not known for being easy. It's not known for being a relaxing experience. But that's why I think it won Game of the Year. So definitely check out Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Alright. So now, we get into the really fun part of the show, and that is my recommendations. So last year I did a recommendation list of games that you should definitely try and play. Now I spent the last couple of days refining it, going over it, and just remembering games that I played that I would recommend to others. These are all games that I have personally played, and I highly value that you experience at least once when you find the time to do so. Now, I'm going to start with all the story games, and I'll tell you when it switches. So the first one is the Arkham franchise. The Batman original ones being Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City, and Batman Arkham Knight really made superhero games great again. Before then, people couldn't really figure out the formula, and then they came around, and these games were released. They're just really well defined superhero games, and they also, I believe, really boosted Batman's popularity overall. I highly recommend that you go and play Batman Arkham Asylum. The next one being, or the Batman Arkham franchise, specifically being City, if possible, but because City's the one that's they really went all out on. The next one being Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 is a classic looter shooter. It's really what set the standards for looter shooters before we had Destiny 2. I don't recommend Borderlands 3 at this point. Actually, I recommend you avoid Borderlands 3 at all costs, and you go play 2, because 2 has more content. It's more refined. The guns are a lot more interesting. It doesn't overbear you with legendaries. The builds are a lot nicer. And it's just replayability, just has a lot of replayability. Both Arkham and Borderlands 2 have a lot of replayability to them. Next, Dishonored 1 and 2. You can put 2 in this list too. If you ever want a stealth action game and a really fun game to speedrun, Dishonored's that game. I played Dishonored 1 at least 2 times, and I just recently kind of finished 2. They're both really interesting world development, and the stealth combat is second to none. Nothing beats it. It's really good. After that, Skyrim. Skyrim is a fantastic game. It will keep you occupied for hours. There's so much to do, so much to discover. There's a reason why this game has been ported to so many different devices and is on the list of the top games of the decade. This can also be said for the Fallout games as well. But Bethesda generally just makes these games, but I think out of that type of style of game, Skyrim is the best. Next, Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Black Flag. These are the 2 Assassin's Creed games that are... if you ever wonder why Assassin's Creed is famous, these are the 2 why. Assassin's Creed 2 is probably the best Assassin's Creed they ever made. And then Brotherhood, I would say, is my favorite. And Black Flag was good too. Then it fell off. Skip all those, and the new ones are all right. But if you ever want to know why people fell in love with Assassin's Creed, it's because of these 3 games. These games explore the history of Rome and Italy and how pirates roamed throughout the seas. They are very religious aspect, but it's mostly about the history. The combat's fun. The upgrades are fun. The world is amazing. I highly recommend you check these games out. Next is the BioShock franchise. BioShock has always been a very interesting franchise because of how the world and the story is built. I highly recommend that you play BioShock 1. 2 is alright, and Infinite is also okay, but 1 is really the one that stands out among all 3 of the entries. There's supposed to be also news that there's supposed to be a new BioShock entry coming next year as well. Then we have Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3, I think, is my favorite Dark Souls because of how the levels are designed, how the bosses are designed. Overall, they got everything right. 2 is okay, but 2 is kind of a drag in my opinion. I just beat it, and I never played 1, but 1's regarded as probably the best and the hardest. But 3 is a good mix of both worlds. Then I have Fallout 4, 3, and New Vegas. They kind of the same thing as Skyrim. If you don't want to go swords and dragons and you want to go guns and nuclear waste, then go Fallout. Final Fantasy 7. I talked about this earlier. It is a fantastic game. The story is amazing. The soundtrack is amazing. It's long. It will keep you occupied. Yes, it is old school, but it is something I believe you must play at least once. And if you're, especially if you're born before the game came out, check it out. Next is the Grand Theft Auto franchise. Not a whole lot to say here. If you want to shoot stuff up, blow shit up, GTA is your game. After that, we have Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 is the defining space RPG of the decade. I think Mass Effect 2 was the game that really made Mass Effect. It's a lot of fun. The story is really interesting. The antagonist is one of, I think, the best antagonists written in gaming. I'd highly recommend you go check out Mass Effect 2. And following great antagonists, Portal franchise, GLaDOS, the puzzles of Portal. These are classics, straight up classics. So go check them out. Now we have Saints Row 3. Saints Row 3 it's like GTA but more fantasy funny. Believe in 4 you even get to fight aliens. So if you want to slap people around and just pure chaos, I would say Saints Row 3 is that game. Going back a little old school, and these games are like not that you want to really play, but I think you should at least check them out. Is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 are, again, really good RPGs made by the same people who make Mass Effect. And as well as Star Wars Battlefront 2, 2005. There's a reason why people were really excited for Star Wars Battlefront before EA came out and fucked it up. Apparently the current one is really good and they fixed it, but you gotta go back and play 2 if you can. Then we have the Star Wars The Force Unleashed 1 and 2. This was the prime time solo Star Wars experience game until Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order came out this year, which is fantastic. So I recommend you check out both if you're just looking for a solo story of Star Wars and just cutting people with a lightsaber. Next is Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Conviction and Blacklist. Really fun, sneaky, kind of mobile, tactical shooter sort of games. Check them out. After that, we have The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3, one game of the year, I believe, in 2015. There's a lot of content there. It's made by CD Projekt Red. They're making Cyberpunk, which is coming out next year. The Witcher is also getting a TV Netflix series coming out same day Rise of the Skywalker does, which is the next Star Wars movie on the 20th. But The Witcher 3 is a really good game. It's even better with mods, in my opinion, if you can get it on PC and mod it. But there's a lot of story there. There's a lot of interesting story. There's really fun relationship interactions. So definitely check out The Witcher 3 and its DLC. Going into a competitive game, League of Legends. There's a reason it's the top, esports game of the year. I think it's very hard to get into, and I wouldn't recommend new people to get into it, but still check it out because I have a love-hate relationship with League, as we talked about on previous shows. After that, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild's the top defining game for the Switch by far. The sequel may come out next year, hopefully, but this game really opened up my world. Nintendo did a fantastic job with this game. It is my most played game on the Nintendo Switch. And if you have a Switch, this should be the first game you play, and this should be the first game you pick up, because it is beautiful. It is a work of art. It is beautiful. And they just kept the ball rolling with Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey, so much fun. Being able to throw your cap and the movement and the speedrun mechanics of that game just made that game fantastic. Next, continue with our Switch games. We have Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This game flew under the radar, but I still thought it was a very well-developed game. There's a lot of good content there too, being post-game, and it's a decently long game. I think I never played the original Xenoblade Chronicles, and that's regarded again as one of the best games of the decade. It was on the Metacritic list. I know they're making a remake for that, and I believe that's coming out next year. But Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was still a fantastic game, and I recommend you play it. Red Dead Redemption 2, that's what finished last year's game off, and it was still great. It's had a rough PC launch, I know that, but it is still a really good game for the same reasons that I think Breath of the Wild was really good, and that's its realism. It does a great job taking things from real life and putting them into a game and making it feel like fun gameplay mechanics overall. So I recommend you check Red Dead Redemption 2 out, as well as the original Red Dead Redemption. I haven't played that one, that's why it's not on the list, but do check those games out. It's fun being a cowboy. Marvel's Spider-Man. It didn't win anything last year, but it was still a great superhero game. Before you play this, I think you should play the Arkham games, of course, but Spider-Man, it had a really good story overall, and the ending and the final boss, it was really well written. After that, we have Kingdom Hearts Final Mix and Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. These are specifically Kingdom Hearts 2. Combining Disney and sort of like Final Fantasy together is what Kingdom Hearts is, and 2 was a really good one. 1 is old school, but 2 it has a great soundtrack, and overall they're just really fun games. So I recommend that if you can, go check these out because they are really good. Next, the Uncharted franchise. Being action adventure sort of games, if you want an action adventure game, Uncharted's your game. 2 is by far, I think, the best one, but all of them are really well done. If I had to rank them, I would probably put 2, 4, 3, 1. But they're really well done games. If you just want a straight, something that plays out like a movie, Uncharted's your franchise. Go check those out. Next is The Last of Us. Made by the same people who make Uncharted. If you ever want a deep kind of father-daughter story with zombies, The Last of Us is your game. And Last of Us was the last game of the PS3's life cycle, and it's going to be the last game, or one of the last games of the PS4's life cycle as well, with The Last of Us Part 2 coming out next year. So The Last of Us is it's a really emotional journey, in my opinion, and it's somewhat scary as well. So definitely check that out. Next is God of War 3, 1, and 4. These God of War. It's note that it changes up the formula. Originally 1, 2, and 3 are hack slash games, and 4 it's still a hack slash game, but it's a little more changed, and there's a reason why 4 won Game of the Year last year. But these games are just really fun, and they're really brutal. They have some of the most brutal death scenes in all of video game history. And 4 is fantastic. The ending for 4, I think it's one of the best endings of this decade, and is one of the best made games of this decade. Just Kratos and his son, after you've known these characters, after you know what Kratos has gone through and done through 1, 2, and 3, and what he goes through raising this boy on his own, is really well done. Following up is Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn is I think you're noticing a pattern here. A lot of good games come from the PS4, and this was, I think, a staple of the PS4's life cycle. It's beautifully well done. It's different, as in not a whole lot of games try to do like robot dinosaurs, and you're just like, what happened to old civilization? It was a very interesting world building, and I think they did a fantastic job, and I can't wait for the sequel as well. And if you played Death Stranding already, they actually use the same engine. The people who made Horizon Zero Dawn let Kojima use the engine. So if you thought Death Stranding was beautiful and smooth, Horizon Zero Dawn is just as much. Next is Final Fantasy 15. Not a whole lot to say here. It's the most recent entry in the Final Fantasy series. It's a fun. I would play it really for the soundtrack. The game itself isn't really that good, but it's still fun, and it still gives a very good Final Fantasy experience. Following that is the Darksiders franchise, another hack and slash game. Really fun sort of games where it follows the Fourth Horseman. I only played 1 and 2. I've not played the most recent one, 3. But playing Death as the Four Horsemen, and just kind of how the world's been destroyed, and now there's angels and demons, and you're cutting them. It's a lot of fun. There's also a new, I believe, dungeon crawler Darksiders game that was just released as well. Next, Persona 5. Persona 5, I know I say it a lot, but this is one of my top games ever. It saved me during a tough time. You'll have a blast with it. Fantastic soundtrack. Over 100 hours of gameplay. It's a long ass game, so you'll definitely get your money's worth. And the story is just like super interesting. It's the most modern turn-based game. Now, if you're thinking, oh, I don't like turn-based combat, Persona 5 does it in a way that it doesn't even feel turn-based. It's really well designed, the combat. So I highly recommend you check out Persona 5. But I would say wait, because next year in March, Persona 5 Royals is announced, and it's kind of like an addition to Persona 5 where they changed the story up and they changed everything kind of up. So check that out before you check out Persona 5, but it is still a fantastic game. I cannot stress that enough. The Wolfenstein franchise, if you like shooting Nazis, that's your game. Enough said. Shadow of Mordor, if you like Lord of the Rings and Assassin's Creed, that's your game. Enough said. After you play Uncharted, if you want to play Tomb Raider, that's your game. Enough said. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, one game of the year in 2015 for a reason. In my opinion, again, I haven't played Death Stranding, but Kojima's last good game. The gameplay of this game was a lot of fun. It lacked story, but the soundtrack and the gameplay were a lot of fun, and the things you can do for a stealth action game in that game is pretty impressive. Nier Automata, we talked about this before. It's very deep, very enjoyable story experience with a fantastic soundtrack. I think actually one of the best. I recommend you check it out. The Infamous franchise, a fun game, open world, shock some shit. Specifically Infamous 1 and 2. They're really old school games by now, but check them out. Same with Prototype, kind of hack slash, open world, these same type of games. Check them out. Deus Ex Machina franchise, or Deus Ex. It's a fun, cybernetic, altered world sort of game. Those are fun. Check those out. You want to go really old school, really kid-ish, family friendly. Star Wars, Lego Star Wars, The Complete Saga. This is the game that made my childhood. This game, a lot of fun. But the complete edition is supposed to be becoming next year as well. Final Fantasy VI, regarded as the best Final Fantasy. It is very interesting. Again, super old school. So take your time with that. And then we have Undertale, a fun little game, RC game. I think you should, at least dip your toe into it. It's not my favorite game, but it's still fun, and it does have a good soundtrack. After that, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I already covered this. Devil May Cry 5. I already covered this. Resident Evil 2. I already covered this. These are the big games of this year. I definitely recommend you check those out. And then we have Ori and the Blind Forest. One of the most... it had a great soundtrack. It was visually beautiful. Great art direction. And it's a really fun platformer. And the sequel is supposed to be coming out next year. Kingdom Hearts 3. It was meh. But it was still fun. And when Borderlands 3. It was still fun. For competitive games, we're just going to go over these quick. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Team Fortress 2, Rocket League, Magic the Gathering Arena, Super Mario Strikers, that's an old one, you're probably not going to get that one, Wii Sports, I believe everyone's playing Wii Sports, Apex Legends, Fortnite, Overwatch, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Street Fighter 5, Halo, Master Chief Collection, that just came out for PC. Those are your competitive games that I recommend you check out if you just want to, dick on some kids. And then we have Mob Shooters, Killing Floor 2, Payday 2, and some sandbox games like Minecraft and Terraria. And then your MMOs, if you want to all work together for one single goal, that would be Warframe, Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, World of Warcraft, and World of Warcraft Classic. Alright, and that sums up all my recommendations. I'll probably release this list when it's more complete, because I also have movies, TV shows, and cartoons, and animes, and mangas on there. But I'll cover that probably in next season once I refine it a little bit more. So personally, these are my games to play currently in my list. I'm going to go over it fast because we still have to go over the games of next year's release. So I have Red Dead Redemption 2 is on my list. Zelda Ocarina of Time, Zelda Wind Waker, Zelda Majora's Mask, and Twilight Princess as well. So basically the classic Zelda games. I didn't really grow up on Zelda, so that's why they are on my list. The Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection, that has like all the Metal Gear Solids, excluding 5. Splatoon 2, it's a fun competitive game for the Switch. Resident Evil 1, 2, I guess 3 now, 4, and 7. Celeste, it was kind of the speedrunner game since it's released in a difficult platformer. I finished Dishonored 2, so I can remove that actually. Death Stranding, it's debatable. You know, this game got a lot of interesting feedback when it came out, and it was nominated for awards and it won some. Control, I'm currently playing that right now. The Outer Worlds, Pokemon Sword and Shield, I'm interested in it. Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy 12, The Zodiac Age, Gears 5, Slay the Spire, Hollow Knight, Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2, Octopath Traveler, Final Fantasy 8, and Final Fantasy 9, Ni no Kuni 2, The Revenant Kingdom, Greedfall, A Plague Tale, Innocence, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Ori and the Will of the Wisp comes out next year, Grix, Disco Elysium, Persona 5 Royals, Persona 4 Golden, and that is my list of games to play. For games of this year, and this is my personal list of games that I played that I think won games of the year for 2019. Drum roll please again. That being Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice is number 1. Resident Evil 2. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This could be placed out with Control, but saying that I haven't beaten Control yet, that's why it's not on the list, but Control would probably be in the 3rd or 4th spot. Followed by Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Final Devil May Cry 5, then Kingdom Hearts 3, then Final Fantasy 14 Shadowbringers. This was DLC to a game, so it can't really be on my Game of the Year list, but it's still one of the top releases this year for me. Borderlands 3, and then lastly is Halo Master Chief Collection for PC. It's kind of the same thing. My most anticipated games of next year is Cyberpunk 2077, The Last of Us Part 2, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, Persona 5 Royale, The Elden Ring, which is made by Dark Souls people from software, and they made Sekiro as well, and lastly Marvel's Avengers. So let's just go over the list of games that are coming out. Of course, we're going to do this next season with all of our shows, but we might as well just do it now, just so you know what is to come. First, we have Yakuza, then Dragon Ball, then Tokyo Migration, Mega Man, Moon's Madness, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition, Odd World, Strange Wrath HD, Rugby 20, Journey to the Salvage Planet, Pillar of Eternity 2, and Thoughts of the Darkest Times in January. Nothing that good. In February, we have The Darkest Crystal, Age of Resistance Tactics, Zombie Army 4, Dead War, Gunna Blue Fantasy versus Ori and the Will of the Wisp. That's what I'm looking forward to. Yakuza 5, Street Fighter 5 Championship Edition, Darksiders Genesis, Dreams, Marvel's Iron Man VR, One Punch Man, A Hero Nobody Knows. In March, we have Final Fantasy 7 Remake, Nihoya 2, MLB The Show 20, Animal Crossing New Horizon, Doom Eternal, Bleeding Edge, Journey to Salvage the Planet, and Persona 5 Royals. So a lot of good games in March. In April, you will have Resident Evil 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Predator's Hunting Ground, and Trials of Mana. So a lot of good games coming out in March and April are the months to look for. In May, you have Maneater, that's just a shark game, Marvel's Avengers, Wasteland 3, The Last of Us Part 2, and Fast and Furious Crossroads. Um, so those were probably the 3 highlight months to look forward to, being March, April, and May. Then after that, we don't have release dates for these, but we know that they're supposedly coming out next year. 12 Minutes Away, the survival series, Ixenberg 2, Beyond the Steel Sky, Boyfriend Dungeon, Bravely Default 2, Carrion Calvary 2, Circus Superstar, Cook Serve Delicious 3, Crossfire X, Death Stranding for the PC, Destroy All Humans, Digimon Disaster Report, Disintegration, Dying Light 2, The Elder Ring, Empire Sin, Evil Genesis 2, Fairy Tail, Ghost of Tsushima, God's Fall, Gods and Monsters, Grounded, Halo Infinite. That's supposed to launch with the new Xbox. Haven, Humanity, Humankind, Haytale, Imposter's Factory, In Other Waters, Industrious of Titans, Kerbal Space Program 2, League of Legends, Wild Rift, Legends of Runeterra, Lego Star Wars, The Skywalker Saga, Little Nightmare 2, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Minecraft Dungeons, Moscow, Narrow Dive, 9 to 5, Ninjala, No More Heroes 3, No Straight Roads, Odd Worlds, Soulstorm, One Piece, Obelisk, Outriders, Paper Beast, Paranoia, Phantasy Star Online 2, Project Sakura Wars, Psychonauts 2, Rainbow Six, Quarantine, Recompile, Roller Champions, Rust, Sable, Salvage Sessions, Skatebird, Skull and Bones, Sonic at the Olympic Games, Spellbreaker, Spiritfarer, Sports Story, Star Renegade, Street of Rage 4, Supplemine, Super Mash, System Shock Remastered, Tales of Arise, Tell Me Why, The Good Life, The Settler, Twin Mirror, Vampire, Watch Dogs Legions, and Way to the Woods. Alright. And that's going to conclude the Season 2 finale of It's Not a Sport. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this season. Feedback is always appreciated as well, so make sure to leave a comment or a like. That will always help me out to know what I can do to improve for next season, Season 3, which will probably start sometime in February of next year, maybe a little later. But that basically concludes this week's show. If you want to find all of our past shows, including this season, they will be up on our YouTube channel. You can listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, as well, of course, again, our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us on our Instagram, It's Not a Sport to You, for updates. Thank you for listening. I hope you had a wonderful year and enjoyed this week's podcast. This has been your host, Salty Waffles, signing off.